You got it.
All righty, everybody. Well, welcome. Okay. Hopefully it's working. It gave me a strange error message here, so let me check one more thing. There's been some security changes and all this stuff, so I want to make sure it's catching us. Yes, I think so. Um, yes, sorry about that. Okay, so sorry for everybody that joined and caught our little previous discussion in terms of security changes, but welcome everybody to welcome 2024, huh? You know, and our meeting. So thanks everybody for joining here tonight. Unfortunately, we got kind of clouded out with our first observing session in 2024. Hopefully, we get a lot better weather this year, but unfortunately, the pattern setting in for the next couple of weeks is not awesome. Looks like a lot of clouds. It's warm, it's relatively warm, but a lot of clouds. I did notice just a few minutes ago there was a very nice moon out, though, so you could actually see the moon without too much fogging over. Um, so a couple of quick things. Um, so our next observing session, I believe, is and he. Let's see. He looks at the website. uh, would be February 10th. So hopefully we'll get better weather. Um, so that would be February 10th. So if the weather's good, hopefully we'll get a chance to get out there. Our meeting in February will be February 22nd. Tentatively, what I have planned, if I can get the speaker arranged, is talking about the Messier Marathon. It's actually a fellow who, if I can get him lined up, has he has did the Messier Marathon photographically in the course, so took a picture of them all in one night. So it's actually kind of interesting. But he has a lot of good tips for planning for the Messier Marathon. Speaking of which, we can do that in March. The dark sky night weekend in March is March 9th. So being earlier in the month is better for the Messier marathons.
Mhm.
And we're going to be doing something at Hampton. That's actually kind of an important thing because unless it's raining, we really are going to go out there if we can see anything at all, because SCDNR is actually bringing down a team of people and some people to actually kind of check out what we're doing. So this is so for Hampton, it'd be that one. The March will hope would be one we want to kind of put a full court press on, and Low Country Stargazers will be out as well, right? So that's hopefully um, we'll have we'll be able to get out there and hopefully we'll have some good skies. That would actually be great. So um, yeah, that's those upcoming events. As far as other things of note, the first one is I got a message from Groups.io today that I haven't really had a chance to fully grok, but apparently they're doing some revalidation of their user IDs because of a lot of things. So you may be getting a message to revalidate yourself on Groups.io. That is not spam. If you get one, that's actually a real thing. I haven't had a chance to log in. Supposedly it shows me who needs revalidation and all kinds of stuff. I think it actually came about because some of their servers got blacklisted on some of the spam lists. So I guess they're just revalidating that the things are real. So if you do see that from Groups.io, that's not something that's fake. That's something that's real. Again, I'll try to figure out exactly what it means for us. The email was long that I got from Groups.io, and I haven't gone and logged on and seen everybody's status. So um, I'll let everybody know. So um, I assume everybody saw the email about the meeting. So maybe it's still working for you. But I think as of Monday, anybody that needs validation that doesn't have it, they're going to cut them off. So if for some reason your email stops, I will send one out certainly on Monday or Tuesday. If for some reason your email stops, you can contact me and we'll figure out what's going on. Okay. So that's really, I think, all the business stuff. Gerald, did you have anything?
Yeah, just a reminder, dues are now due for the 2024 year. If you hadn't paid those, go ahead and send in your payment to to John, our treasurer. And it's easy enough to do it online. I did it all online this year.
I'm sorry, what's the dues? 25?
25, yes.
Okay, thank you.
And the Astronomical League raised our per member dues $1, but we're not going to raise our dues. So, all right. Well, that's all I really had for everybody. So we were actually have a presentation. I see Ken's on. So he was going to talk to us a little bit about, well, eclipse stuff, I think, right? So,
Yep. Since the eclipse is coming up, figured I might as well revamp the old presentation I made to my astronomy club up north back in 2017. So it's updated with information from this eclipse as well. So,
well, take it away, Ken.
all righty, let me do this, share screen. Oh, by the way, the background here, I took that at Hampton Plantation back in December. The Pleiades.
Oh, cool. So stars look pretty round, I think, right?
Pretty nice. Yeah.
I also got the Horsehead and the Flame Nebula. Let's see if I can get those a couple weeks ago from my back patio, oddly enough. Let me share screen.
It should let you.
There.
Oh, there we go. Marvelous.
So I've been.
Now, is this from your back patio or from?
Yeah, back patio. It's a stack of about 15 minutes worth through a UHC filter on my camera. It's a 6-inch. I have a 6-inch Newtonian homemade and a Canon 60DA, and I had a UHC filter from Astronomics on it.
Boy,
Ken, would you be available to speak to camera clubs?
I'm just beginning with this. Yeah, Julie, I would, but I don't know how much I can contribute because I'm still kind of a newbie novice, but well,
most of us are I don't think we can do 15 minutes. We might do a stack of 20 photos. And
well, that's what this is. It's a stack of, like, I think 30 or so, 35 30-second shots, and I use Deep Sky Stacker and GIMP to process it. So
okay, Deep Skies, I have to look into that one. Thanks.
Sure. Okay, let's see. I gotta bring this down. Slideshow from beginning. There we go. Can you see that? Probably not. I have to share again, right?
Yeah, you probably want to share your entire screen. That generally works the best.
Like
there
that?
You go. Right on.
Okay. So as I mentioned, this is the a presentation I made back in 2017 for my World Astronomy Club up north, and I just wanted to put something together to explain how eclipses occur, why, and a little bit on observing them and what you want to look for. So, so what I'll do is I'll cover the types of eclipses. I'll talk about the motion of the sun, the moon, and the earth, or at least the apparent motion of them. What you need to have an eclipse, the eclipse Saros, which is how they repeat, what to look for when you're observing a solar eclipse, And there's some really good websites out there. I just put this one down, eclipse website at nasa.gov. There's a bunch out there that are pretty good. So I can't remember if this nasa.gov links to Fred Espinak's, but he's got, I mean, details that you don't even need, but the path and all kinds of stuff. Anyway. Okay, eclipse types. There's lunar eclipses, of course, where the moon moves into the Earth's shadow. If it moves into the shadow partially, we get a partial eclipse, total eclipse. The penumbral is when just a little bit of when the moon is just in a little bit of the Earth's shadow, but it's not completely covering. They're hard to see. But what I'm going to do mostly tonight is talk about a solar eclipse where the moon casts a shadow on the Earth. And there's three types of those other than partial. There's the annular or ring eclipse, where the sun appears a little bit bigger than the moon and it never gets totally covered. And of course, you need a filter all the time for those because the photosphere of the sun is always visible. Total eclipse, where the moon appears bigger than the sun and totally blocks it. And then a hybrid, which I'll talk about later. Okay, for a lunar eclipse, we just mentioned that occurs when the moon moves into the shadow that the Earth casts. It can only occur at full moon phase, obviously, because full moon is when the lineup is proper. Can you see my cursor, by the way?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Julie. And the appearance of the moon during totality, when the moon is completely in the shadow, can be anything from a bright red brick color to gray, depending on the atmospheric conditions at the time. And the total phase of when the moon is completely in the shadow can last from just a few seconds or minutes up to almost an hour and 45 minutes, depending on whether the moon is close or far from the Earth, its speed in the orbit, yada, yada, its distance to the Earth. So sometimes you can get really good show. By the way, all these are not to scale unless they say so. Here's a couple of pictures that I took of some recent lunar eclipses from my back patio. This one on the left is from May, a couple of years ago, and one on the right is from November. And two things you can notice right away is one is the difference in brightness of the moon during totality. And I want you also to take a look at the dates and remember those, May 15th and November 8th of 2022. They're both almost 6 months apart. So keep that in mind. Okay, as we'll see later, sometimes the apparent size of the moon is smaller than the sun. And if a solar eclipse happens at this time, the moon doesn't cover the sun and an annular eclipse occurs. It's kind of like having a dime on a penny. The dime never completely covers the penny. And of course, you need eye protection, proper filters during the entire eclipse because the sun is never totally covered. Here's what an annular eclipse looks like from near the center line. At the midpoint of the eclipse, you can see the ring of the sun, and it's orange due to the filter that they used on the telescope or telephoto lens. Okay, when the moon appears to be anyway bigger than the sun and a solar eclipse occurs, it's called a total solar eclipse. And totality, when the moon completely covers the sun and you can look without filters, can last anywhere from a second up to a maximum theoretical time of 7 minutes and 31 seconds. That's another number to remember, 7 minutes and 31 seconds, totality. Totality for an annular eclipse can last a lot longer, although what they mean by totality is the moon is kind of inside the sun itself. All righty. The area where the moon partially blocks the sun for an observer on the Earth is called the penumbra. Here, it's the gray area. And where the sun is completely blocked by the moon is the umbra. And that's where you want to be, because that's where the path of the eclipse goes, in the umbra, and you'll see the total eclipse. Here's a picture from space, from a satellite, of the moon's shadow going over Africa in 2026. Note the dark central point, the umbra, and the penumbra, where the moon partly blocks the sun. You can see that's a little bit grayish. And of course, here's a picture of a total solar eclipse. Hopefully this is what we'll see coming up. Note the symmetrical corona around here. It's very symmetrical, and the very bright, brilliant red prominences. For those that have never seen a solar eclipse of the assembled throng, you'll be very, very surprised, at least I was when I first saw my first eclipse, at how red these are. Actually, they look kind of pinkish here, but in real life, they look very, very deep, dark red. Okay, let's look at some, talk about some geometry and how eclipses occur. If you shrunk the Earth, the moon, and the sun down so that the Earth was a 1-foot diameter ball, the moon would be a tennis ball about 30 feet away from Earth, and the sun would be like a 10-story building over 2 miles away. So try to get those lined up for an eclipse. Whenever I do this talk, or a simpler version anyway, for schools, the kids always get it wrong. I have a basketball and a tennis ball, and they always hold the tennis ball really, really close to the basketball. I said, no, it's actually 30 feet away. It's out in the hall down the way, and they're quite amazed when they see that. And of course, we know that the moon's orbit is not a perfect circle. It's an ellipse, so sometimes it's close to the Earth, about 221,000 miles, and sometimes it's far away, a little over 252,000 miles away. Not only that, but the orbit's inclined about 5 degrees from the Earth's sun plane. And since the moon looks like it's about half a degree in diameter, that's about 10 lunar diameters. So the moon can be about 10 lunar diameters above and below what we call the ecliptic in the sky. I guess, whoops, some of you are familiar with that. So we'll talk about that later as well. Okay, let's see how the moon's appearance changes and look at its orbit. On the left, you can see at perigee, when the moon is closest to Earth, we have a supermoon that the media is always talking about, and it looks 15% bigger and about 15%, and 30% brighter than it does at apogee when it's far away. And notice here down at the bottom, 34 arc minutes in diameter, and on the right, not quite 30 arc minutes in diameter. So it makes a big difference. And I guess to some of you, you can probably tell when you go outside and you look at the moon, you can tell, hey, I think the moon's at perigee because it looks really big. On the right, we see the moon's actual orbit, which is the solid line, the solid circle here, and the average distance, which is the dotted line going around. So you can see, and that really is almost a scale from what they're saying. So that's what it looks like if you're looking down at the orbit of the moon. So it changes a little bit, but enough to make this difference here on the left. And because the Earth and moon, or the moon is 5 degrees off the ecliptic, or the Earth-Sun path, this is what it can look like from the side. The moon can be well above or well below that line. Okay, now let's talk about a node. A node is a point in space where in the moon's orbit, it would be in between the sun and the Earth or behind with the Earth in between the moon and the sun. And because of the tilt of the orbit, sometimes the moon appears to be going down below the ecliptic, and sometimes it appears to be coming up. When it's coming up, it's called the ascending node. And when it's going down and it passes that point, that's called the descending node. That makes it, that's important for eclipses, and we'll talk about that shortly. On the right, you'll see how when the moon is passing the shadow of the Earth, it has a lot of the times it's well above or well below the shadow. It doesn't show all of the paths. For example, the moon can be, we said, about 10 lunar diameters above. This one only shows 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it can be way up here or way down below off the screen. So most of the time at full moon, the moon completely misses the shadow of the Earth. And similarly, when it's in between the sun and the Earth at new moon, it will be well above or below the sun. So we don't have eclipses at every new moon or full moon. The magic 400. It just so happens that the sun and the moon appear approximately the same size in the sky, as determined by the ratios of the diameter and their distances. So if you look at the top here, the sun diameter to the moon's diameter is approximately 400. It's not exact, but it's approximate. But the distance is also about 400. So the moon is 400 times smaller in diameter, but it's also 400 times closer. So what that means is they appear to be about the same size, half a degree, in the sky. The size of the moon, as we perceive it, can range anywhere from a little under a half a degree to about 10% more than half a degree. And its average is about 0.523 degrees. The sun is pretty constant because the Earth's orbit around the sun is much closer to a circle than the moon's orbit around Earth. And the sun's size, on average, is about 0.533 degrees. So on average, the sun appears slightly larger than the moon. And what that means for solar eclipses is that on average, there are slightly more annular eclipses than there are total solar eclipses. So if you looked at eclipses in general, solar eclipses, and counted out how many there would be more annular eclipses than you would have total solar eclipses. Okay, if you look down from the north at the Earth-Moon system during a solar eclipse, this is what you'd see. The shadow of the moon, which is this little gray rectangle here, is moving at high speed across the Earth, but the Earth is also rotating in the same direction. So the actual speed of the shadow to the observer on the Earth is actually the difference between the two speeds, the speed of the shadow moving because of the motion of the moon and the speed of the Earth rotating. It also depends on other factors, including where on the shadow the Earth is, whether it's near the poles, at the tropics, etc. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on too. To get a feel for the motion of the Earth, the moon and the sun, let's look at the moon and the sun in the sky. Here's the ecliptic, the blue line through the center, that the sun, the yellow ball, is moving to the east about 2 of its own diameters, or approximately 1 degree per day through the ecliptic. The moon every day moves about 12 degrees, or 24 of its own diameters, to the east and slightly north or south because the orbit is tilted, right? So this moon from up here, if that's the maximum, the next night it may be down here, and then it'll slowly move down night after night past the ecliptic descending node and then come around and come back up again. So the moon can be this far, 10 lunar diameters above or 10 lunar diameters below the ecliptic, or the sun, whatever, at the new moon, time for the eclipse. That's why eclipses just don't happen at every new moon. Okay, so we know for a solar eclipse, what has to happen is we have to be at the new moon phase where the moon and the sun have the same longitude or east-west position. The moon also has to be at or very close to a node, which means it's passing the ecliptic. The moon's distance makes a difference too. If it's close, we'll have a total eclipse. If it's farther away in its orbit, we'll have an annular solar eclipse where the sun is never completely covered. Also, the Earth-Sun distance makes a difference, because if the sun appears smaller, that means the moon can cover it for a longer time. So if we're farther away, which is in July, from the sun, we get a longer solar eclipse in general. We're closest to the sun in early January, so eclipses that occur in early January will be in general slightly longer or shorter than in the summertime. Also, it's best to observe an eclipse, a solar eclipse, at local noon on the Earth, because that's usually where about the longest duration of totality occurs. It's the closest point to the moon and has the highest relative velocity relative to the shadow's movement. Let's go back and look at that. So if you can think about the Earth rotating this way and the moon's shadow moving down as well, if you're here on the Earth at the bulge, this is noontime, right? And as the moon moves, let's say your shadow is over here down at the bottom of the Earth. Now you're projecting on the sphere a little bit to the side. Not only is the shadow smaller because you're farther away from the moon, but it's also moving faster because you're projecting onto a curved surface. Okay, a hybrid solar eclipse occurs when the shadow of the moon doesn't quite reach the Earth along part of the path, but it does and completely covers the sun at another part of the path. So there's a total solar eclipse for some people, and for others, it's an annular or partial eclipse. And if you want to watch, I don't know if we have the time. Ian, how much time do we have for this? Because I can.
Oh, we got plenty of time. You can keep going. We're not holding you to a clock.
Okay. What I could do is I could put up this YouTube video if you want to see that. Let's see, end the show. Copy this. All right, are you seeing? Okay, you're not seeing this, right? Or are you? You're seeing it?
Yes. I
Okay.
can see it.
All right, cool. Can you hear it?
No, I don't hear anything.
All right, I'll walk you through it. Anyway, he's talking about the 400 number. So they appear about the same size. So why doesn't an eclipse occur every month? So here's the tilt of the moon's orbit, which means it misses the shadow most of the time. And it's elliptical. So
Not always in the right spot.
annular eclipse. When the moon is closer, the moon blocks the sun out completely. And because you got the curved surface, annular, total, and then annular again, because the shadow never touches the Earth at some points. Okay. I don't know if that was worthwhile, but
It was a good visual.
okay, good. Okay, well, here's what they were doing. Here's the sun, of obviously not to scale, the moon moving in its orbit down on the screen, and at sunrise, or as the Earth is turning, the moon just barely, the shadow doesn't quite reach the Earth, so you see an annular eclipse. The moon looks smaller than the sun. At around noontime, because of the bulge of the Earth here, see the curve, you're now in the shadow, and the moon completely covers the sun. But then again, later in the day, the moon can't quite reach the Earth. The shadow of the moon can't quite reach the Earth, and you see an annular eclipse. So,
What was the link for that YouTube video?
what was the length of it?
The link? Yeah, the link.
Oh, the link.
Yes.
Previous.
Okay.
Okay. You good?
Yeah, just a minute.
Okay.
Okay, I got it.
All right,
Thank you.
great. Sure. Yeah, stop me anytime. Okay, an eclipse season is when the sun is at or near a lunar node. Now, remember from the lunar eclipse dates we saw before, it was almost 6 months, but not quite. It was like 5.5 months, 5 3/4 months. Well, an eclipse season occurs about every 173 days, and it lasts about a month long. So for 15 days around this, before and after this date, you can have an eclipse. And up to 3 eclipses can occur during a quote unquote eclipse season. For example, this year, in March, there will be a penumbral lunar eclipse. Then in April 8th, we'll have a total solar eclipse that we're all going to, we hope. And then again, not quite 6 months later, there's a partial lunar eclipse and an annular solar eclipse. Because the orbit of the moon is tilted to the Earth, it misses the nodes for every month in between. So there's no way to have an eclipse like in June, July, or even November, December, January, because it's not going to line up with a node. And here's a diagram of the eclipse season. You can see from 2021 to 2024. In 2021, the eclipse season was centered around May and June, and another one's approximately 6 months later, November, December. In 2022, because the eclipse season is slightly short of 6 months, they moved to a little bit earlier every year. So here in 2022, it moved to April and May from May and June. And the second one from November, December to October, November. Similarly for 2023, April and May, and here October. 2 eclipses in October.
So
yeah, go ahead.
Ken, does that mean this one in March of this year? Is that going to be visible in the United States, or?
I don't remember. Penumbral eclipses of the moon are really, really hard to notice anyway, because the moon doesn't lose much of its brightness at all. So you really need almost a photometer to measure it.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, but yes, it is visible in the U.S., but we aren't really doing anything because it is very. It's really hard to tell.
And notice that also very often, not all the time, but very often, a partial or penumbral eclipse of the moon is associated with the total or annular eclipse of the sun, and vice versa.
Okay.
So for example, here in 2024, you got a penumbral eclipse of the moon, and then a couple of weeks later, boom, a total solar eclipse. Then in the fall, you have a very partial eclipse of the moon and another, not total because the moon's not close enough, but you have an annular solar eclipse two weeks later. So you get an idea of the eclipse calendar and eclipse season from this. This is a good diagram.
It is.
Okay, the Saros. The ancients realized that similar eclipses occurred every 18 years and 10 days. It happens because the Earth, the Sun, and the Moon all are about in the same positions. What happens is, for solar eclipses anyway, a Saros begins as a partial eclipse in one of the north or south polar regions. The next one moves 120 degrees to the west because of the 10 1/3 days. 1/3 of a day is a third of a rotation, which is 120 degrees. And if it moves, the path moves up a few 100 miles or so to the other pole. A Saros can be 1,200 to 1,500 years long, averaging around 75 eclipses per Saros. And at any given time, you can have about 40 Saroses active. That's why there can be 2 or 3 eclipses during a year. So that was interesting. Of course, the ancient guys, if you couldn't predict an eclipse and you were the king's eclipse predictor, you were in trouble. So they made sure they knew what they were doing. Okay, here's Saros 136. They gave them numbers. I saw the July 91 eclipse here in Baja California, near a town called La Paz, and it lasted 6 minutes and 40 seconds of totality. So it was quite a thing to see. Now you'll notice that the first eclipse on this map here on the bottom right, May 18th, 1901, in the South Pacific and the Indian Ocean. 18 years and 10 1/3 days later, well, it's 11 days because of leap years, intervening leap years. But here it is, May 29, 1919. This was the solar eclipse that Eddington used to prove Einstein's general theory of relativity. And it lasted, like, I don't know, 6 minutes and 50 seconds or so, at its peak just off the coast of Africa. The next one, of course, 18 years and 10 1/3 days later, June 8th, 1937. Notice the eclipses are moving north. Every one of the Saros is moving north. The next one, June 20th of 55. June 30th of 73. They all have the same shape. And then July 11th, 91. Now notice the end of the path to the west is lower than where it started. So that indicates that these are all on the descending node of the moon as it passes the ecliptic. Okay, let's talk about Saros math and how that works out. Why do eclipses occur every 18 years and 10 1/3 days? Well, let's look at the new moon cycle, which is about 29.5 days, and let's call that A. Let's call the cycle of the moon Earth distance B, so that it takes 27.5 days approximately for the moon to be the same distance to the Earth as it orbits around us. And to have the sun at the same lunar node, or ascending or descending, is 2 eclipse seasons, or slightly less than 1 full year. Let's call that C. So if we multiply A by 223, so if we go through 223 new moon cycles, we get 6,585.3 days. If we have 239 moon Earth distance cycles, we have 6,585.5 days. And if we multiply the sun at the same lunar node period by 19, we have 6,585.7 days, which is approximately, if you average these out, 18 years, 10 1/3 days. And the fact that they're not exact is the reason that the path moves north or south and slightly west. So that's where the Saros comes from. It's quite an interesting mathematical situation. There's other series and other cycles for eclipses, but the Saros is the most common one that people use, so I'm not going to talk about the other ones. When you look at maps of eclipses, they some of them may look like they're part of the Saros, but some aren't. For example, well, we'll look at a map next, but eclipses that I've seen that are part of the same Saros, the first one I saw was in 1980 in Africa, February 16th. And then the next one in that Saros, which was 18 years later and 10 days, February 26, 1998 in the Caribbean. Also the August 11th in Munich in 1999. And then, of course, the one that we had 6 years ago in the US on August 21st, 18 years and 10 days later, a third of the way around the Earth. Okay, here's the location. The stars show the locations of eclipses that I've seen in my days. And if you look up on the top, the yellow circles, we have 9th of March, 1997 for an eclipse here in Siberia, Western Siberia. And then 11 1/3 days later, we have the 20th of March, 2015, 18 years, 11 days later. And then we have another similar, which is 26th of February. Oops, I'm sorry. 1979. That was the first one. And then 9th of March, and then this one. So notice they're going north a little bit more. This one here, the 26th of February. And then the 9th of March is a little bit farther north, and then the 20th of March is a little bit farther north still. So this Saros, because it's approaching the North Pole, will soon be ended, and there won't be any more eclipses from that one in another couple hundred years, probably. And here's where you can see the 16th of February, the green line here with the star in it that went through Africa that I saw. And then 18 years later, 1998, 26th of February in the Caribbean here. And here is the Munich eclipse that I saw in 99 in August 11th, and then the 21st in 2017 in Missouri. I saw that one. So, but look at all the other lines. Those are all of the other active Saroses at any given time. And this map shows eclipses from 79 to 2017. So you could look around and say, wow, that's quite a bunch of eclipses occurring in just, what, 40 years. Here's another map, easier to see. Here's a couple in the same Saros. You got July 22nd, 2009, going through India and China. And then August 2nd, 2027, over North Africa. Again, descending node. Notice they're moving south. The shadow moves south in its path. Saros 139 is the one that we're in right now. It started in the 1500s, 1501. Up in Sweden, people noticed a partial eclipse in May. The first total eclipse that occurred was in the Arctic Ocean, lasted about a second in 1627 in November. The longest eclipse will be in East Africa in 2186. If you're still alive, that would be one to see. And it's going to last almost the theoretical maximum. Remember, I said it was 7 minutes, 31 seconds. This one's 7 minutes, 29 seconds maximum. The last total eclipse for that Saros will be in Antarctica in 2601, last 35 seconds. And the last partial eclipse in this Saros will also be in Antarctica many, many years from now, 2763. So you get an idea of the Saros there. Okay, the eclipse path. Well, the moon hits the Earth, the shadow hits the Earth at sunrise, goes the path, the shadow traces the path across the planet, and that's where you want to be. It'll be about 115 miles wide, I think, on this one. And then, as we saw in that video, it leaves the Earth at sunset. The shadow leaves the Earth at sunset. Depending on many factors, where on Earth it is, how close the moon is, how far the sun is, a lot of factors depend on how long totality is. I think this one coming up is what, 4 minutes and 10 seconds or so at its maximum. The speed of the shadow is 2,100 miles per hour, but then you have to subtract, as we saw before, the motion of the Earth's rotational speed at the observing point. So if you're in the tropics, your speed with respect to the shadow is going to be higher. So that's one of the reasons that the tropics have the longer eclipses. And also because the moon and sun can be directly overhead, which gives you that perpendicular projection where you're closer to the moon, the shadow is wider, etc. So, okay, here's the path of April's eclipse. Starts in the Pacific Ocean on the left at sunrise, moves up through Mexico, total duration or maximum duration here in the middle of Mexico, 4 minutes, 28 seconds, okay? Goes up through central United States, New England, and Southeast Canada, and then disappears off the Earth at sunset.
Ken,
Yes.
are you saying that the totality is 4 minutes or the whole?
Oh, totality is 4 minutes long when the sun is completely blocked at this point here. Yeah. Where I'm going to be, hopefully in north central Arkansas, it's going to be about 4 minutes and 10 seconds, I think, something like that. Yep. This is another eclipse path movie. I don't know. We don't need to see that. We just saw one before. So, so of course, this is for Carbondale, Illinois, and Carbondale, Illinois, and a place called Cape Girardeau in Missouri are in interesting locations. They were in the path of the 2017 eclipse, and they're going to be in the path of this eclipse as well. So people living there got really lucky. So the timing here for Illinois is going to be partial eclipse begins at 12:43, total eclipse at around 2 p.m., and total duration 4 minutes, 8 seconds. It's not bad. 4 minutes is a pretty good time for a solar eclipse. Here's the path through Texas. Julie, you said you're going to be in Ennis. Where is that regarding or compared to Dallas?
I don't know.
Just
All I know
southeast, just slightly southeast of Dallas.
Okay, southeast. So you're in a good spot. You're near the center line. That's really
Right.
good.
Somebody
Okay.
pulled up a map and said that's where we need to be.
Okay, then you're in the right spot. And here's hopefully the green thing dot is hopefully where I'll be.
Okay.
The problem is for me, and the good thing for you is that as you go south and west, the chance of clouds becomes less and less. You get a better chance of clear skies. So, so we're driving out there. My sister and my brother live out in Northwest Arkansas, up here by Springdale, Fayetteville, and Rogers, and they have a cabin over here. So we're gonna drive over and stay at their cabin.
Oh, lucky you.
Yeah,
I'll
but
be
if
in
it
camper.
but if it's cloudy, Julie, I'll see you down in Ennis. So so yeah, you have to be flexible, and you're good. You're in your
We're in an
mobile
RV. We'll
in
move.
RV. Yeah, you got to move to where there's no clouds. There's no fun driving all that distance and not seeing anything.
Well, we figured not staying. We weren't going to stay in the Northeast because I know it hits like the New England states.
Right.
And I said, in April, that's a crapshoot.
Yep. Oh, it's worse. Yeah. Yeah. I have a cousin that lives by Rochester. What's the town right on the Great Lakes in New York that always gets hammered? Buffalo.
Buffalo.
She lives very close to Buffalo, and that's in the path. And I told her, I said, Kathy, you're gonna be really lucky if you have a clear sky in April up there. But she's planning on having a party in her backyard, so good for her. I one of the, not funny for them, but whoops, back up. When I saw the eclipse in Mexico, in La Paz, Baja California, in 91, there was a group of people who wanted to get an extra 2 or 3 seconds of totality. So they hired a cab early in the morning to take them up into the mountains right on the center line. Well, guess what? Up in the mountains, when it started to get cooler, clouds formed and they didn't see anything. So they were not happy. They were not happy. We were laying on the beach. We got, almost 7 minutes of totality. It was really great. Okay, so remember I talked about Carbondale and Cape Girardeau. Here's the eclipse path from 2017, coming down from the left down to the right. There's Cape Girardeau. I think Carbondale is down here just to the east of Cape Girardeau. And the 2024 eclipse path is shown coming from the center, lower center, going to the upper right.
Oh, wow.
So that's a really lucky place to be. Here's Julie, your cloud predictions.
Oh, okay.
Say, as you get down towards Dallas, you get your 50-50. I'm going to be, no, not too bad, about the same. But look what happens when you go into Mexico. It's like 10-20% chance of clouds. I have some friends that are going to be in Mazatlan down here by the coast.
So are we saying maybe I don't need to go to Texas?
No, I'm saying you're probably smart to go there, because if the projections are for clouds the next day, you got to keep your eye on the weather. Drive southwest.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, here's just a shot that somebody took of as the eclipse progresses. You can see the moon moving to the left and biting more and more out of the sun until you get the totality. And then as it moves to the left, it comes off the sun. And these filtered images. Look at all the sunspots, by the way. Pretty interesting. Eclipse jargon goes by contacts. First contact is when you first see a little bit of the moon biting into the sun. Solar filter, of course. I remember in Africa, we had an old gentleman, the colonel. He had a Celestron 6 or 8 or something like that. He lugged around. It was this huge thing. And we were in a little tent camp along a river in Kenya, and he yelled out first contact because he had the solar filter on. He was looking at it and he saw the moon bite into the sun. Second contact is when you're completely in the shadow. What happens before that is a phenomenon called diamond ring. And we'll have a picture of that shortly. The totality begins. You have darkness for whatever time. In our case, about 4 minutes. Third contact, you get another diamond ring. Totality ends. And fourth contact is when you no longer see the moon biting into the sun. So those are terms you may hear.
So during total darkness, you take your filter off.
Right.
And then you put it back on before those 4 minutes are up.
Well, actually, if you want to get the diamond ring, which is really beautiful, you can take the filter off just as the last bit of sun is shining through. You'll see a picture of this shortly, and you see,
okay.
And you definitely want to get that. What happened to me in Africa, even though I knew exactly what to expect and I practiced, I was so excited that I forgot to take the lens cap off the camera for the diamond ring. So I missed that. So I also remember being completely shaking and exhausted after the eclipse was over. It was my first one, and I was just I understood why the ancient people, and still some people today, run and hide, because it's quite something to see. Anyway, Julie, here's some things to look for. Of course, using a solar filter, you need you look for the shadow approaching. In our case, it'll be coming from the southwest. You'll see the sky darkening to the southwest. It looks like a thunderstorm coming, but it's clear. It's really weird. But it's fast. It's really fast. Stuff starts happening quickly. When the moon completely covers the sun, you see those bright red prominences, the corona, the outer atmosphere of the sun, and Bailey's beads. We'll get to those shortly. There'll be 5 planets visible to the naked eye, and maybe even a comet during this eclipse. So this is going to be interesting. The horizon color, it could be anything from dark gray to like an orangey sunset. I've seen them all. It's really quite cool. You look for shadows on the earth get very sharp. Other animals and people, well, the people start going nuts. In Africa, the monkeys climbed up into the trees and sat down because they thought it was nighttime. And for the 2017 eclipse I saw in Missouri, the cicadas came out in August, and they were chirping like crazy just before and just after totality, and of course during totality. And of course, because the sun's getting covered, the temperature goes down and clouds may form. So here's the diamond ring, Julie. This is, you really want to catch this before and after totality. So just when this is happening, quickly take your filter off and take a picture, because then the moon will cover the sun and you'll see this instead of that.
Okay, I'm gonna need 2 cameras because my filters are screw-ons.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I can't work that fast.
Again, the prominences, I just couldn't believe how red they were when I saw them. And of course, you can use binoculars at this point too, when it's covered. The shape of the corona is different. A lot of times what happens during solar maximum, for kind of counterintuitive, I don't know, but the corona looks more symmetrical. So since we're approaching solar maximum, I would expect for this eclipse, you'll have a pretty symmetrical solar corona. If you're at near solar minimum, it can look like on the right, where it looks like rays coming out, and looks very asymmetrical. Bailey's beads are it's the sun shining through the valleys at the edge of the moon, and it's best seen near the limits of the shadow path. Since I'm not interested in seeing Bailey's beads, I want to see the long eclipse. I've never seen these before because I'm always in the center. I've never really paid attention to this. So, okay, here's the planets and perhaps a comet in the sky. We're going to have, here's the eclipsed sun here. Mercury a little bit to the upper left of the sun. Venus lower right, you won't miss that. Saturn and Mars, again, a little bit further to the lower right. And it's also interesting to watch the sky just before totality, maybe 5-10 minutes before, because the stars start to come out. Venus will be noticeable first, then Jupiter, and then probably Saturn, Mars. And if you have binoculars or telescope and you care, you can look at Uranus. And Comet Pons Brooks may be visible also. It'll be getting close to the sun. It might be magnitude 4 or 5, 3, who knows? They're not very well predictable, but that'll be something to look for as well. This is really going to be fun. Orion coming up in the east, so it'll be good if you have a good good horizons. Now, I mentioned before about the horizon. Here's a really good. This is kind of what we saw in Mexico. That the 360-degree sunset all around. Since you're in the middle of the shadow, and you look around, you turn your head 360 degrees. All around you is like a sunset, which is really, really weird. On the ship in the Caribbean, it was kind of like just like gray, and that depends on what the conditions are in the atmosphere as this sunlight comes down. It's refracted. In February on the cruise ship, I took temperature readings from the deck of the cruise ship. Early in the morning, it was over 90 degrees. And then during totality, it had dropped about 12, 14 degrees Fahrenheit. So what happens, you'll notice it gets cooler as the sun starts getting blocked. Maybe a breeze will kick up. In Africa, some clouds started to form, but fortunately moved away. Here's something called shadow bands. You see them on the blanket on the ground. Little waves of interspersed light and dark. I've never seen those because I'm looking up, not down, and I didn't bring a sheet to any of my eclipse trips, so I didn't pay any attention to that either. I guess it's interesting to see, but I'm never looking for that. This is interesting. The leaf pinhole cameras. If you're under a tree, what happens is the overlapping leaves cause little pinhole cameras, little projectors, and you can see the progress of the eclipse if it's overhead and you've got some leaves on a tree. You'll also notice what happens with, I find very strange, even though hopefully the sky is clear and it's getting dark, but it's not cloudy, and shadows become very, very distinct because instead of this a ball of light giving fringes around shadows, now you got this little crescent, which is more like a pinhole, and shadows become very, very sharp. So everything takes on kind of an eerie, darkened, but very sharp. I don't know. It's kind of weird. It's like anything else. You have to experience it to really understand. So anyway, if you've never experienced, I guess, how many of you have and have not seen eclipses? I don't know. Rod, you've seen them? You've seen some? Okay. Gerald, Chris, and Ian are offline visually.
The 2017 one.
Okay, good.
Yeah, we're here.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I saw the one in Texas in 2017.
Okay.
I was actually, still working there.
I live in the path of totality for the 2017. So
Wow, good for you.
I saw it from my driveway.
Where was that?
It's I live pretty far south here in the Myrtle Beach area.
Oh, okay.
And so my driveway was actually in the path of totality. So
wow, lucky you. That's our friend in Munich was in the path of totality from their backyard, and it was really cloudy that day, but the clouds broke for about 10 or 15 seconds during totality, and we did see it, but anything else we didn't see. So anyway, Julie, especially for you, plan ahead where you're going, what you're going to do, and rehearse what you're going to do with the cameras, because you're going to get so excited. You're going to, like I was in Africa, you'll start fumbling stuff if you're anything like me.
Yes.
Oh man. Tripods are a must, of course.
Yes.
It was fun on the cruise ship to take temperatures. That was interesting. And notice what's going on around you. Like we saw the monkeys in Africa go up in the trees. People start getting excited. You hear the noises of the people going around. The cicadas start chirping. Just taking in the whole thing. It's really quite the spectacle. Here's something that was interesting in the European eclipse in '99. The Autobahn that goes from Stuttgart to Munich is this green line that I put in here in the center. And that was right in the center line of the eclipse. And on German TV, our friends had it on the TV. We were looking from their backyard, and they're watching it. And there was a traffic jam on the Autobahn because people were just stopping their cars and pulling over to watch the eclipse. So the Germans don't like people blocking their main highways, but in this case, I guess it it was excusable. So so that was kind of fun. But yeah, it's really something to see. So when is the next one? Okay. We have noticed annular coming up, right? In October, which is what, 6 months from April, right?
Mhm.
Eclipse season. Southeast Pacific, an annular eclipse. Antarctica, an annular eclipse. I don't know if I got the date right on that one. I think that might be 25 or 26. And then there's a total eclipse. I don't think I got this time right either. Whoops, previous. Greenland, Iceland, Spain, 751. I think that's a typo. I got to check this page. And then in 27, you got one that goes, I might go to Gibraltar, but I'm not going to Libya or Algeria or Yemen to see an eclipse, at least not now. And the next eclipse here in America is going to dip down from Canada through Montana and North Dakota in 44. So this is the last one locally to see. So, you know, grab it while you can. So that's great, Julie, that you're going. That's
Well, we're planning, you know, and I'm green at all this.
yeah. So then I end with, of course, Pink Floyd, the sun eclipse by the moon. So, and that is it. It didn't take too long, did it? What about 45 minutes, an hour, something
Sorry,
like that?
I was talking to the mute. Yeah, so yeah, no, that was fine. Thanks. Appreciate it, Ken.
That was
Lots
perfect.
of good information.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so eclipses are a lot of fun. So hope everybody gets a chance to see something. You know, and enjoy it. Hopefully you get good weather. You never know, right? It does happen.
And
So
is there a website to determine cloud cover?
Well, the one I showed you, that map, that's the
Yeah.
average cloud cover for that date over the last X years. So, yeah, you can't tell until the day of, or actually a couple days before, maybe. So, unfortunately, yeah. But like I mentioned, as you go south and west, chances improve. But you never know. You know, we're talking Mother Nature here. So
That's right. Wait a few minutes, it'll change.
I love your bison behind you. That's great.
Oh, that was my September
Yeah.
trip to South Dakota. It's the bison roundup out there. It's pretty awesome.
We were in Tanzania in October, and we saw the wildebeests doing the same thing.
wow.
They weren't being rounded up, but they were
The
running around.
migration?
Yeah, that was a lot of fun to see. Yeah.
Well, I hope I get something.
Yeah, just like I said, you got to practice and have a default. Somebody told me before I went to the first eclipse, which was in 1980. I went with a group from the Hayden Planetarium in New York, organized it, and the head at the time, Dr. Ken Franklin, he told us, look, if you do anything, don't keep looking at your camera. You got to look up and remember it in your head, because that's the most important thing. You have to experience it and make sure you see it instead of, you know, fumbling around with your camera, which I was doing because I left the lens cap on.
it's funny. That's exactly what happened to me. Is I had tested some of my stuff, but every time I tested my camera, you know, swapping back and forth, there was a set screw that slowly started backing out a little bit.
Oh no.
And so during the eclipse, it blocked it, but I had the same advice from people I trusted. And so basically I just took my camera, I threw it in the chair, and I just enjoyed the eclipse. And I'm so glad I did that, because when I started messing with it, you know, I realized I could have just messed with it for a few minutes and missed everything. So
yeah. They say that when Eddington was taking his pictures for the 1919 eclipse on that expedition, that he was so busy taking, you know, pulling the plates out of out of, because they were glass plates, pulling them in and out of the telescope. He didn't have a chance to actually see the eclipse. And it was 7.5, almost 7.5 minutes long. So yeah, poor guy, but he's famous.
Well, my plan is to have 2 cameras running.
Yep, good for you. Yeah.
So 2 cameras each on a tripod.
What I did with my cell phone in Missouri, because we were in a big park in Washington, Missouri, and they had a big festival going on, big time. They were selling T-shirts and everything else. And I had my phone on just recording voices. And I have an audio of the people going crazy and the cicadas chirping in the background. It was really something.
Cool.
So,
Yeah.
so
Well,
yeah, enjoy.
I get something. I hope I get something.
Yeah.
I did order a solar filter for my iPhone, so that did come in. I don't know. Hopefully, I'd like to get at least 1 or 2 pictures. So, I was at Four Corners in October. What was that? The partial one last October?
Let me think. That was an annular, wasn't it?
Or
Yeah, that was
whatever it
annular.
was. Whatever it was, we pulled over on the side of the road, and because none of us had filters for our cameras, all of a sudden, all these astronomers were around us, so we got to watch things through their scopes, and
Oh,
it
that's
was pretty
nice.
exciting. It's really neat.
That's great.
But thanks for all this information. Now, do you live in Myrtle Beach?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And
Yes,
your
I
last,
do.
what is your last name?
Legal, Legal.
I may be looking you up and having you come to one of our camera clubs.
Okay, pop me an email on the group thingy, whatever it's called. IO, what is it, Ian?
Groups IO.
Groups IO, yeah.
Okay. Great. Because we're all greenies. We don't know anything.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
All right. Well, Ken, thank you so much.
You're welcome. I hope you picked up a little bit anyway.
Yeah, no, it's very helpful. So I am gonna stop the live recording. Let's see. At this point, thanks everyone who's watching